Hello and welcome to a mini vlog where I will dig down deeper the rabbit hole of variable ND filters on the Sony RX107. And I thought, oh, the last videos, they looked a little bit odd. It's claiming to be a true color variable ND filter, but there was some color shifts in it. And so I thought to put it to the test and compare it to my second Sony camera, the Sony ZV-1, which has an internal ND filter. So both of the setups are very similar, the RX107 and the ZV-1 with the internal ND filter. I set them to the same color profile, the Cine Tone imitation from Film Alliance, and I will try the different cameras. We will both with ND filters so that we can compare how the footage looks. The white balance will be set to a fixed white balance according to the current weather. It's now very cloudy and overcast, so I will put it to cloud white balance, but with the ND filter. And I will try to take as similar as possible shoots, and I will compare them after that on the computer and try to comment them, so we will see whether the claim of NiSi being a true color filter is a good claim, or whether in reality a filter that has no variable ND but just a single value results in better colors. So let's jump right in. So this is recording with ND2, so a lower aperture. I cannot see it unfortunately which it is, but yeah, this is selfie with ND2 on the NiSi filter. And this is selfie with the NiSi filter on ND5. So probably a smaller depth of field. Again, I cannot see it, but this is how it should be logically. And this is selfie with the Sony ZV-1 and the internal ND filter. How does it look? Does it look similar to the NiSi? The NiSi filter has a slight brownish tint compared to the neutral ND filter of the Sony ZV-1. As we can see, the brownish tint increases with increasing ND settings. But as we can see on these shots, the difference is very minimal and you have to look very closely to see any kind of difference. ND2 on the Sony RX107, ND2 on the Sony ZV-1, ND2 on the Sony RX107, ND2 on the Sony ZV-1. On this set of shots, the difference is the most striking. While almost neutral at ND2, it becomes a little bit brownish on ND5 and almost green in the ZV-1. ND2 on the Sony RX107, ND5 on the Sony RX107, and ND2 on the Sony ZV-1. ND2 on the Sony RX107, ND5 on the Sony RX107, and ND2 on the Sony ZV-1. So as you may have noticed, the exposure is automatic, but with multi-mode, exposure compensation is 0. I try to eyeball it so that it's somewhat the same. Obviously, the Sony RX107 and the ZV-1 don't have the same lens, so there is a slight difference usually in the minimum aperture, but in the end, this is how I would use the cameras, and I'm not making like a laboratory condition where the aperture is exactly the same. The lightning metering is the same, the exposure compensation is the same, the white balance is the same. Mostly the difference is the ND filter and how the camera acts. So everything is recorded in 4K, 30p with 1/60th of a second shutter speed. So this is as comparable as it gets for two Sony cameras with the same sensor. ND2 on the Sony RX107. ND2 on the Sony ZV-1. ND2 on the Sony RX107. ND5 on the Sony RX107. ND2 on the Sony ZV-1. So I was finally able to have a look at the footage on my computer in 4K. And the result is very interesting. I mean, it's not like it looks bad. The NiSi filter does not look bad. It has a slightly brownish tint, in my opinion, that gets stronger if you increase the value of the ND. But it does not look bad. It's more like that the ND of the Sony ZV-1 or the Sony ZV-1 in some situations looks almost too green compared to the RX107 with NiSi filter. For me, the decision is clear. I wanted to know whether it will be an option to take the Sony RX107 for my next trip to Turkey instead of the Sony ZV-1, and I think that looks pretty good, yes. So if you liked the video and if you thought the results about the NiSi filter were interesting, please give this video a like. You can also follow my channel if you want to follow more about the meta aspect of making YouTube videos and talking about cameras and recording styles and such. So hopefully see you soon on the channel. Bye!